If you've ever forgotten about something the moment it's out of your sight, or felt like tasks, people, or even goals just disappear from your mind unless they're right in front of you, you're not alone. We all have heard that term before, out of sight, out of mind. But how literal is that really? Well, for many people with ADHD, it gets pretty literal. You will know what I'm talking about already, perhaps, if you experience that sense of feeling that tasks, goals, or even people just disappear from your mind without you meaning to, when your focus drifts onto something else. It can mean forgetting something the moment is out of sight, like answering a text message or an email, or just in general feeling that tasks just disappear when you aren't thinking of them. So for today, we're talking about having difficulties with object permanence, especially in the context of ADHD, and most importantly, what you can actually do to support yourself. Hello and welcome or welcome back to Unwinding Minds. If you are new here, hello. It's nice to meet you. I'm Rosie. I'm a chronically ill counsellor based in the UK who specialises in supporting disabled, neurodiverse and chronically ill people with managing their mental health. I also make these videos on the side as a supplement to offering counselling services, and that is to support the wider community, including those who cannot access counselling with a professional like myself. It's really important to state, however, that these videos, not one of them, are a substitute for counselling. They are only intended to support you with psychoeducation. So first of all, what the heck is object permanence? I like to start with a definition of object permanence because I think it will help a lot. Object permanence is a term from developmental psychology, and it refers to the ability to understand that things continue to exist even when you can't see them. Object permanence is a skill we usually develop in early childhood, like when a baby learns that a toy still exists even when it's hidden under a blanket. This concept is central to developmental psychology, especially when you're exploring how infants and young children begin to make sense of the world that's around them. Swiss psychologist Jean Piaget, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, was one of the earliest researchers to study it in depth, and his influential mid-20th century work suggested that children typically begin to understand object permanence at around 9 months old. However, as is usually the case with research, more recent studies have challenged that timeline, indicating that infants that may be as young as 3 to 4 months old can show some awareness of this concept already. There's a lot of debate about when it develops, but for today we're not getting involved in any of that. People have been arguing about this since the 1970s and challenging aspects of different parts of his research. So instead of thinking about that, we're going to contemplate how object permanence differs in people with ADHD. Because it's one thing to understand that the toy hasn't disappeared from underneath a blanket. But when we consider that ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition, difficulties with object permanence come to the fore as a possibility for us to consider. Most people with ADHD understand that the toy is still under the blanket, of course. But for many people with ADHD, this concept applies in ways that maybe don't always necessarily feel intuitive at first. Instead, it can show up in an adult with things more like forgetting about tasks unless they are visible, losing track of relationships when you don't see somebody regularly, ignoring or neglecting personal items that are stored away, even if they're really important, feeling priorities shift constantly depending on what's in front of you as well. It's important to state that it's not that you don't care, it's that your brain isn't consistently holding those things in its awareness. So I'm sure we're eager to understand, all of us, why on earth does this happen in some people and not in others? In ADHD, this difficulty isn't really about memory in the traditional sense. It's mostly about working memory and attention regulation. Working memory is a bit like your brain's mental sticky note, I guess. It helps you to hold information in mind whilst you're using it, and it releases it when it's no longer needed. For people with ADHD, working memory can be less reliable. Attention is often driven by what is immediate, visible, or stimulating, and so out of sight can genuinely become out of mind. This is also connected to dopamine, the brain chemical that is involved in motivation, focus, all sorts of things. Tasks or objects that aren't necessarily immediately rewarding or visible don't get prioritized by the brain. So instead of a stable mental map of everything that matters, your attention naturally shifts towards whatever is most present in your environment. And again, this is neurological, it's neurodevelopmental, it's not a personal failing. I do really want to emphasize that. So let's think about how these difficulties typically manifest for people with ADHD. There are obviously many examples beyond this that will perhaps be more personal to you, but here are just some examples of how it can look. It might be forgetting to reply to messages once they're no longer visible to you. I hear clients speak about that all the time, picking something up, reading a message, and then just forgetting to respond to it altogether. It can also look like leaving tasks unfinished unless they stay in your line of sight. Buying duplicates of things that you already own. Guilty as charged. Struggling to maintain habits unless there are really strong reminders in the environment. Feeling disconnected from your goals or your plans unless you really actively and frequently revisit them. So if any of that resonates, you're definitely not alone. Counseling can be a powerful tool for supporting individuals who struggle with object permanence, particularly in the context of ADHD or related challenges. Through counseling, clients can learn practical strategies that help to externalize memory. They can structure their environment differently and create consistent routines that make important tasks and relationships more visible to you and therefore easier to track. Therapists can also help clients develop coping skills for anxiety or the frustration that often arises when these things slip from your awareness, offering techniques such as guided planning, mindfulness exercises, and some cognitive reframing. Additionally, counseling provides a space where you can normalize some of these experiences, helping with self-esteem and helping you to understand that difficulties with keeping people, tasks, or goals in mind are a neurological matter rather than a personal failing. Self-compassion is a great skill to be working on and building. So let's go through some strategies together now. The key idea here is to keep it simple. More important things need to be kept visible, external, and harder to ignore. So externalizing your memory is the first step. Don't rely on your brain to hold everything. Give it some support. You can use sticky notes in visible places, whiteboards, digital reminders, or alarms. Open planners instead of closed notebooks. If you can't see it, your brain is much less likely to remember it exists. You can also use visual cues in your environment. Design your space to work better with your brain. For example, keep the items that you need out in the open, within reason. Put things where you'll physically bump into them. Use clear containers instead of opaque ones so you can see where your tools are if you need to use them in the future. Your environment can act as an extension of your memory. You can also create now and not now zones. Instead of trying to track everything equally, you can separate your world into what matters the most right now and what can wait until later. Keep your now items highly visible and accessible. This reduces overwhelm and helps your attention to lock onto what's the most important. Building consistent checkpoints is also helpful. Since things don't stay in mind automatically, create moments where you can revisit them. Some examples of doing that include a daily 5-minute planning check, a weekly reset or a review, checking the task list at the same time each day, thinking of this as refreshing your awareness. Using technology as a support tool can also be really helpful. Your phone can be a powerful ally. You can try calendar reminders with alerts, task apps with notifications, timers to bring your attention back, such as a Pomodoro, for example. The goal isn't to be perfect. It's just to have gentle nudges that bring things back into your view if they have managed to slip away because of your working memory. The most important thing is to try and be compassionate with yourself. This part really matters. Object permanence difficulties can sometimes feel embarrassing. They might feel like you're careless or inconsistent, either to you or potentially you've heard this from others. But I want you to understand that you're not doing these things on purpose. Your brain is prioritizing based on visibility and stimulation, not value. So instead of blaming yourself, which is not very productive, focus on building systems that support how your brain actually works. It makes a lot more sense practically, but also in terms of treating yourself kindly. So those are just some examples of what you can do. If you've made it this far, please know that I'm very grateful to you. If this episode has resonated with you or helped you, please take a second to like it, to subscribe, or to share it with somebody else who might benefit from watching this video as well. You never know, you might make a big difference in their life too. We make a lot of videos about chronic illness, disability, neurodivergence, and mental health on this channel. And I'm always very eager to learn a little bit more about what people want to see more of. If you have thoughts about this video, I'd love to talk with you, so put them down in the comments section below. And do check the description if you're interested in working with me on a one-to-one basis around your chronic illness or neurodivergence, as I do offer private counselling. Thank you so much for watching, and take really good care.